Alrighty, welcome back everyone. We just talked about some of the scheduling that has come out for the TV networks. We had a full ESPN slate for week one. We've had a couple of different big noon kickoff and college game day locations released, so wanted to get into all of that. But now it's time for some rivalries, and I think this is something that a lot of people are looking forward to in the new iteration of college football, where you are losing some rivalries. I'm not really sure where Oklahoma State's going to go. I don't know where Oregon State's going to go. So you are going to lose some. There's no two ways about that. You're going to lose some of the games that we've loved so much. But I do think we're going to get some new games into the fold that might just replace those and more. So I want to break those down for you guys. And I think it starts in the SEC. And I'm going to go Georgia against Texas. This is one that frankly makes me really upset. And I'll be totally honest, I grew up a Texas fan. Both my parents went there, so I am a big time Longhorn fan. The problem is, I grew up in Atlanta, Georgia, and then I attended UGA for my college career. So it's putting me in a bit of a pretzel. But I do think these two programs are going to go at it for the next couple of years. And I think it has a lot to do with just where they are in the grand scheme of things. Georgia and Texas, to me, when I look across the SEC, they're the only ones that I can say are going to be not only good in 2024, but in 5 and 6 and 7. I think they are sustainable. I think they're setting themselves up for success down the road where Ole Miss, I think, is on the right track, but, relying a little bit heavily on the portal. Bama, you never really know what's going to happen with Kalen DeBoer. Tennessee, all these other, Missouri, everything's a little bit up in the air for them down the road. I think these two teams in particular are set up to be the class of the SEC for quite some time to come. And that means you're going to have some very defining games in the years to come. Obviously, they meet in Austin this upcoming year. I think if you have two undefeated teams walking into that game, you have the number 1 and 2 teams in the country walking into that game. So it'll be fascinating to watch that one unfold. I think there's a ton of energy behind that weekend, not only on the football field, but there's also an F1 race in Austin that weekend. So it's going to be off the walls. But the QB battles also are going to play a part here. You have, obviously, Carson Beck against Quinn Ewers this year. But right after, you got Arch Manning against Jaden Rashada or Gunnar Stockton for the next couple of years. Then maybe Trey Owens takes the helm at Texas, and you have him against Ryan Puglisi. It feels like we're set up for some really, really good quarterback battles where you have two of the best guys in the country playing for two of the best teams in the country going at it in the best conference in the country, which is what we all want. And on top of all this, you look at both these I am a part of both these fan bases. They are crazy. They are all over the place. They are easy to anger. They take everything to heart. And it's going to create some very intense Twitter battles that I will stay 10,000 feet from because I have no desire to talk bad about either of these programs. It's going to be a tough time for me, but I expect those two to be battling it out for quite some time and develop quite a bit of animosity for each other. Another one I'm looking at is Oklahoma LSU. I debated between Oklahoma Tennessee here, but to be honest, I'm going to do another segment of this, so I'll probably sneak that one in then. But these two teams have crossed the paths a time or two. Most recently, Oklahoma running into that buzzsaw that was 2019 LSU. Oklahoma just got embarrassed, and they have not forgotten. More importantly, their fans have not forgotten that game. They want to get back and beat LSU. They are playing this season. It's two of the most passionate fan bases in the game. Both are going to be really, really intense. And also, kind of like Texas and Georgia, I view them as the class of the SEC going forward. Oklahoma and LSU, I view right in that second tier of teams that could pop up into Atlanta any given year and are definitely fighting to get into that top tier. So I think there's going to be super important games for this one coming down the road that maybe, don't have SEC title implications, but could have playoff implications, and just bragging rights in general are always a fun way to go about this. And then I think zeroing in on this year, Jackson Arnold against Garrett Nussmeier is appointment television. I think there is going to be some energy in that game that it could be a little bit back and forth. Neither team is the most fortified on defense as they would like to be, so maybe we just get some battles. And I think that's one definitely to watch throughout the next couple of years because I think Oklahoma fans still have a sour taste in their mouth from 2019. And then Oregon versus Ohio State. This is one where they've met a couple of times, but it's kind of like the Texas-Georgia matchup where these teams, in my mind, are going to be the class of the Big Ten moving forward. Now, Michigan, Penn State, Washington, they will have plenty to say about that, USC as well. But at the end of the day, I do think these teams have set themselves up not only for this year, but for next year. And then on top of that, they've met a couple of times in recent history and have had some really, really good games. Mainly the national title back in the first playoff in 2020 and 2014. Ohio State pretty much dismantled Oregon with Cardale Jones and Ezekiel Elliott and that incredible team they had and the incredible run they had. And then Oregon got them the last time they faced off in 2021. So tons going into this. It's going to be incredible to watch this game unfold. I think this is one where you don't necessarily have, the same type of brands as you have across the rest of the Big Ten. I think Michigan, Penn State, they strike me as more, hardworking, blue-collar type brands, where Ohio State and Oregon are a little bit more hoity-toity, a little bit more show and flair, and I think that'll make for some really, really remarkable matchups. I love this matchup. I think it's going to get really, really intense over the next decade or so, not only in the Big Ten, but possibly in the playoff as well. And then you have USC versus Michigan. This is purely based off the style of these two teams. They are two wildly different programs. When you talk about Michigan, you talk about hard-nosed, punch-you-in-the-mouth football. Then when you talk about USC, it's a little bit of flash. It's a little bit finesse and speed and that type of thing. I think those differences in styles not only will make incredible games, but also these fan bases will hate each other because they are very, very different from each other. And I think it'll be an incredible thing to watch. Obviously, USC is trying to adapt a little bit more of that Michigan model, but it's going to take some time, and I think plenty of time for this to develop into a very, very heated rivalry. I do think that this game this year is going to be a little bit closer than some might think. Now, I do expect Michigan to win, but I do think USC is going to be able to kind of put them on the ropes a little bit, start this thing off really well, and I think it's going to be really, really intense on a yearly basis. There's going to be tons of energy, great atmospheres at both places, especially if USC can get it rolling. If they can't get it rolling, maybe not that great of an atmosphere out there, but I expect them to, and I think it's going to be just one of those games where we look back on in a decade and say, man, those teams just hate each other. And then we got Colorado State at Kansas State. To be fair, this is kind of going back to the former Big 12 when Colorado was in it. These teams did not like each other very much, and I don't think they're going to waste much time picking up where they left off this year. I think there will be a lot of animosity around here. This also kind of has that Michigan versus USC vibes where Kansas State's that hard-nosed team that, is very quiet and goes about their business. Deion Sanders in Colorado likes to talk. They like to tweet. They like to do all that type of thing. Chris Kleiman, not as much. So it's going to be really interesting to watch the juxtaposition of styles, but also just the energy around the programs. And then I think this one is very interesting, partly because Colorado has a ton riding on these next couple of years. Going into the Big 12, it's a more attackable conference, but at the end of the day, you are going to be fighting teams like Kansas State, like Utah, like Kansas in this battle for being where you want to be in this conference. And I think it's one of those things that will make Colorado even more of a player in this conference. Now, it could go the other direction, and Kansas State could not have to worry about them, but I think it's going to be a lot of aggression coming in the not so near future with that matchup. But I think there's going to be incredible ones that I haven't even broken down yet that I probably will get to sometime, probably next week. But there's other ones that are coming back. We have A&M against Texas, Texas against Arkansas, Oklahoma, Missouri, Utah, BYU. All of these games are now conference games, and it's a beautiful thing. Obviously, there are negatives to conference realignment, but getting back some of these games and adding some of the rivalries I just talked about is a plus that I can absolutely get on board with. So it's going to be really fun to watch. Cannot wait to see those develop. But we're going to take our third break here. I accidentally pressed the third break when I meant the second break, but we're going to take our third break here and use the second break. And when we come back, we're going to talk about a spring overreactions. We'll get back into the Big 12. Did one segment a little bit earlier in the week, I believe on Monday, and then we're going to get into Oklahoma State, Kansas, Colorado, and Baylor today. So stick with us, and we will be right back with that.